This week on Essential Enthusiasm, Tara and I are talking about goal setting. We are talking about the reasons why people don't do it and maybe how we can help them. We're going to talk a little bit about our systems, and then we'll talk about some books that I like that have to do with goal setting. Hey guys, welcome to episode 23 of Essential Enthusiasm with me, Jolie, and my friend Tara. Today we're talking about goal setting.
Yay! As you know, one of my most favorite topics. I literally wrote a book about it because it is something that I think that, especially recently in the culture, it's become a lot more common. It used to just be like New Year's resolutions, and now people are kind of that productivity ideas seeped into the bigger culture, I feel like. But if you are a person who doesn't know what to do next, or you're starting a business and you're not sure where to focus, a goal can help you focus. That's why I talk about it so much, is because if you ask me what you should do, my answer is a question, which is where do you want to go? Because if you don't know where you want to go, I can't tell you how to get there.
Yeah. So let's start there. What do you feel like are the difference, or if any, between New Year resolutions and goals?
There's everybody sees it differently, so it's really but for me, I don't do New Year's resolutions. I do more this is how I want the year to feel. Maybe this is our focus. Maybe this is kind of more the direction our family is headed in, whereas goals are going to be measurable and specific, and really goals are just me, whereas we do a lot of family planning, I guess is the word, but talking with me and my husband, but those aren't goals because I can't make him do anything.
Right.
So for me, that's the main difference is at the new year, I take the chance to get us both together talking about where we want to go. And my goals, though, I can at any time and set down what I want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
How about for you?
Yeah, so I agree. So at the new year, what I did this year is I kind of set areas of focus. So I have feeling good in my body as an area of focus. Now that doesn't mean anything, right? It means something to me, but it doesn't mean losing weight. It doesn't mean exercising. It just means feeling good in my body, and I'm going to allow myself to do that however way it happens. So that's an area of focus for me. Make friendships and connection isn't another area of focus. I also have creativity. So I set a few areas of focus that I was these are things I want to focus on this year. But I don't set hard specific goals around those areas because that's just too restricting for me. And a year is a really long time. So I set areas of focus so that I can allow myself room to kind of grow and change and just kind of evaluate, maybe I thought this was the way to achieve connection, but actually it's stressing me out, so I'll go a different way. And we do that also as a family. We talk about what we want more in our life, what we're grateful for. And yeah, so that's kind of how I don't feel like I set goals at the beginning of the year that are by December, I will evaluate myself on and decide if I'm a success or failure. I just have areas that I'm these are things that I want to improve.
Yeah. And I do a big list of things to do in 2018. Mm-hmm. Right? So this comes from Leonie's Amazing Year in Life workbook, I think is what it's called. And she has list 100 things you want to do in 2018. And that's almost just fun dreaming stuff. So I want to finish 3 pairs of socks. I want to go here. I want to we need to get a new car. It's a bunch of totally random. Some I want to finish this craft project, and some I want to clean up that room, and some that are life-changing, I want to go to foster care classes. That was on my list, and that it's just kind of fun to dream. And then what happens is I don't even finish it in January. I just looked at it again because I was, reviewing my year, the midpoint. And so I added a bunch of new things to the list that I want to do and marked off the things I got done. And it's more it's your rebel tendency of what are all the wonderful things from life I could choose from?
Yeah.
Not let me beat myself up because I didn't do all of these things.
Yeah. So that's a good point as well. So I have an ongoing bucket list that I think mine only has 50. 100 was just too much. But I do have things on there like see a waterfall, but I also have things like reread the Harry Potter series. So like some of them are big and some of them are just like I could crank out in a month, but they're just things that I'm like, I really want to do this. And so yeah, that's ongoing for me that I'm kind of, I'll probably update it every year, taking the things off that I did and adding more things on. That's kind of like the overall approach to goal setting. So, okay, let's talk about books real quick. So there's 2 books. So we have Tara's book is Map Your Business. And then we have The 12-Week Year by Brian Morgan. So the 12-week year is more about like the theory of why you should kind of set goals based on quarters and not like I'm going to do this one thing, this like make this amount of money for this year and then just kind of chunk at that month by month. Like he's very much just focused on the quarter. And then Tara's book is a lot of like things to fill out. Like it's the actual process of like guiding you through here's your big dream and how do you break that down, and then how do you turn like a dream into goals and weekly tasks and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's no theory because, well, like I didn't do enough research to explain the theory, but also because it's like, okay, we assume that you want to get your goals done. Let's fill it out.
Yeah.
But that 12-week year, I hear about it all the time because his point, if I understand correctly, is like basically any goal you have for your year, you could get done in 12 weeks of focus. Like you could spend 3 months just focusing on it. You could reach that goal. And then you could actually do like 4 years of goals in 1 year. I mean, that's going to be an intense year, I think. But you could like really get whatever you want to get done this year. What if you just put all your energy into it for 3 months?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's also, so let's it's kind of easier with income goals. Let's say your goal was like 120,000 for the year. So that's 30,000 a month for, I mean 30,000 a quarter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so if you just have the goal of, okay, I'm going to make 120,000 this year, and even though you've broken that down, a lot of times like things aren't linear. So it's kind of hard. You might be down in January and you might be like off target, you know, at the halfway point, and then you're discouraged and you're still just thinking as success or failure is whether I make this end target. But he's saying if you just focus on 30,000 in quarter 1, you can go all in and try and do that, and you'll work harder because you're just focused on quarter 1. And then you can set a higher goal for quarter. Like if you hit it, then you go like, all right, well then I'm going to go for 35 or 40, and you'll probably end up making a higher amount, or you're just less focused on like one end goal and more just like on the smaller chunk. So you can kind of evaluate more as you go.
Right. And the great thing about that is if you're just focused on the quarter and you can see in, because we're in July, let's say if you see in August, oh, I'm not doing what I'm doing, I'm not going to hit 30,000 this quarter. Okay, so like maybe I need to do something totally different. Mm-hmm. And it'll make you go in like different directions, not just harder work, but also like expanding what's possible. Because you're not like, well, I guess I'll make it up next quarter. You're like, this quarter, I'm going to hit this amount. And that might mean something totally different. And this is especially useful if your business is cyclical, like so many people's craft businesses are. Like, you're just going to sell less yarn in the summer usually and knitting patterns. And so what else could you do in those months? Like, it gets you like, instead of, I'm just going to sell less. It gets you thinking.
And his thing is also that then it's a clean slate. Every 3 months, it's a clean slate. You're not like having that failure of the last quarter holding you down. It's a brand new slate. So for me, like I don't necessarily do that, but again, I don't have a big goal for the whole year, but I think of it more as every quarter I'm looking at things and evaluating and changing if I need to. Like I had things that were on my list for the year that I've crossed off and just said, nope, I've changed my mind about this. That's not the direction that I'm going to go in. I thought that was going to make me feel more connected with people. It didn't. Cross it off. So that's kind of like the other way of thinking about it. Just not having like cemented goals for the year, but every quarter kind of just reevaluating and seeing how things are going.
Totally. And that's like, that to me is the point of a goal, is not not to reach the goal, but to learn what you need to learn in pursuit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like, and this is why I tell everyone, like, at least in the beginning of your business, set goals, make a plan, work towards them, because in the work, you'll figure out what you do and don't like. Whereas if you're like just kind of all over the place, it's really hard to figure out what works and what doesn't, because you're not measuring it, you're not committed to it, you're not like focusing on it. And so by focusing, even if it's the wrong focus, and even if it's not a thing you want to do anymore, I feel like you're going to learn that faster. You know, like I'd rather go all in on something for 2 months, realize it's not what I want and stop it, than like have it going in the background and always feeling vaguely bad about it, you know?
Yeah. So I just posted kind of on Instagram about this. So the reason why I've been thinking about this and looking back on my goal setting books is I posted on my Instagram stories over the weekend about goal setting for quarter 3. It's the halfway mark. Like, how's everything going? And so many people just were like, nope, I'm not setting any goals. And so I was like, okay, why? And so I was telling Tara earlier, there are kind of reasons why people weren't setting goals were either they didn't have time to set their goals yet, which is fair enough, that they felt like they wouldn't hit their goals, so why even bother setting them? They didn't want to set goals, not make them and feel like a failure, or felt they were too busy with other stuff in their life to even focus on their goals. And so the ones that really got me, like the feeling like a failure because you don't hit your goals, like made my heart break a little. And so I've been posting on IGTV and on my Instagram about this and how, so for quarter 2, I had 20 things that I wrote down, and I hit 3 of them, and I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I don't concentrate on the failures, the things I didn't hit. For me, it's just like, I wrote down 20 things, knowing that I was going to pick and choose. So as a rebel, to make goal setting work for me, I need to have choices of my goals. This is why I set areas of focus, and this is why I'll write down a lot of things. I have to have a choice. I've learned that very quickly, that if I just say, this is your thing for the quarter, I can't do it. So yeah, for me, not hitting a goal, even if I hadn't hit any of them, I wouldn't feel like a failure. I would just reflect, okay, did I change my mind about things? Did I have life stuff happen? Like, what happened? Do I still want this thing that I wrote down? Okay, let's tackle it again in quarter 3 in a different way. But like you said, it's just the doing every day that's important to me.
Exactly. I love it. This comes up so often, and I got so flustered with like clients who are like, hey, help me do this in my business. And I'd say, okay, what's your goal? Let's get a really measurable goal. And they'd say, no, I don't want to do goals because I don't want to fail. Well, then I get, like, where are we going? Right? Like, failing is part of it, and rejection is part of it. And by failing, I just mean not getting where you thought you'd get in the timeline you thought you'd get there. That's all part of it. And so you can't be so afraid from that you don't move forward. And you can't be so afraid of that you're not willing to acknowledge what you really want. Because I think that's what it goes back to, right? Is we're afraid of standing up and saying, this is what I really want. And when you don't do that in your life, like any part of your life, you're not going to get what you really want. Like, it's things we've talked about in past podcast episodes, like expectations of your partner, right? Or feeling angry about something, is like, all of that is tied into like identifying what you really want. And I get that people are afraid of it, especially if they haven't been living like that. Like, when you start claiming what you want, it's scary. But actually, so I did an episode that's specifically about for your business, not so much your life, but it's called Why Are You Afraid of Setting a Big Goal? And it's episode 91 of my podcast, Explore Your Enthusiasm. We're going to link it up in the show notes. But in it, I talk about like, this is not uncommon. Choosing a goal and identifying it is like, a lot of people are afraid of it. And I don't know, maybe you have ideas for how we can make people less afraid, other than telling them it's okay to be afraid.
Yes. So it's definitely okay to be afraid. I talked about just removing success and failure as a metric. Like, it's not. So for me, like you said, at the end of the day, I have one goal, and that's to keep doing this business that I love. And as long as I get to do that, then I'm happy. It's a win. Like, I'm happy, my family's happy, I'm doing my business, that's it. So for me, the goal is doing the business that I love. And if I wake up and I get to do the business, then it's okay. So like that's kind of like, I always ask people like you do, well, what's the one thing? Because often they'll say, well, I want to be able to stay home with my kid. I'm like, okay, did you get to do that today? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, okay, then it's a win. Like, it doesn't matter if you reach, yes, at some point you have to reach the sales targets because I need my business to make income to be able to keep doing it. But if you got to do the thing, then it's a win. And so kind of like having that idea and that mentality.
Right. And this goes back to like celebrating like you celebrated the 3 things instead of beating yourself up over the 17 things because when you celebrate, you kind of reinforce that you can do this, and that's what keeps you going. Because the thing is like getting so tied up in either not claiming your goal or feeling like a failure if you failed, that like just stops you, and then you're not doing the one thing, right? Like it's when people feel like that they end up giving up altogether on it. It's not that their business actually failed, it's that they felt like it was failing.
Right.
And so they stopped.
Right. And so I do this in life as well. I don't just set business goals. I set like life goals as well. So those were kind of a lot of the ones that we didn't quite hit over Q2. And that's fine, but that just lets me know like, hey, was your area of focus, like, did you not focus on family stuff enough? Like, how did that feel? Oh, actually things weren't great. Okay, let's put some more energy into Q3, into family stuff. And I know that makes it sound like clinical, but I feel like if I don't focus on it and intentionally set like things that I'm going to try to do, it's easy to let it slip away. It's easy to just let my kids play video games all day. And we have summer coming up, and it's easy to just let the days go by and just not have dates with my husband and like not go for walks in nature. And like all of those things that I know make me feel good and like make me feel connected with my family, it's easy to just forget about them and not do them. And so I do set goals for my family and our life as well, so that like I can look back on the months and think like, okay, like yes, we're, I don't know, improving as a family, like improving our relationships.
Yeah, and I think what you hit on there is actually like a really good kind of way for people to think about it is if there's something like the reverse of what you said. So if there's something in your life that you keep being like, oh, I wish we did that. What if you like made it a goal or a focus or you were intentional about like writing it down and then finding a time each week to do it, right? Because it's easy to be like, oh, I wish we walked. I was just thinking like Jay and I, we live in a really walkable neighborhood and I go for runs, but when we moved here, we were like, oh, in the evenings we could walk the dogs together. We've literally done that once in 2 years. I could make that a goal of like, I want to once a week. And if I intentionally set it and I wrote it someplace where we could both see it, we would do it. Right? Like it would just happen. But so if instead of thinking about like, oh, I might fail at it, instead maybe think about the things you already feel like you're failing at.
Right.
And say like, well, what's the harm? And like, I already feel like I'm failing at us going for a walk in the evening. So I might as well make it a goal. And like, it stands a better chance of happening.
Yeah. So I found, I know, like you said, summer's coming up. I've had much better summers with my kids when we've done this, like all together. I'll ask the kids, like, what do you want to get done? And a lot of times we'll have a list. Our summer's only 6 weeks. So we'll have a list of maybe 6 to 8 things that we'd like to do. But then you go and do them, right? Like my kids want to have a picnic in the park or whatever. It's really easy to think like, oh yeah, of course we'll do that. But for me anyways, if I don't write it down somewhere and look at it and put that in like so I have a list of goals for the quarter. When I go to set up the month, I kind of think which ones am I going to focus on, and then we do that for the week. If those family things aren't there reminding me like, hey, the kids want to have a picnic in the park, like I'll forget about it. But then the nice thing is when you have this list and you can like cross things off, and I'll make sure I take a photo of us doing anything that's on the list. I take a photo of it. At the end of the summer, it's not just like, oh, what did we do this summer? And you kind of know that you did stuff because you had to, but you can't really remember. Like, it's really intentional. Like, we did all these great things, and we have the photos of it, and it's really nice. And even if we don't do all the things, it never feels like a failure.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because and what's cool about that, well, as you're talking, I remembered that like years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, in the Starship forums, do you remember that you posted, you're like, I guess it was, I think you were saying something like you did map making with your
Yeah.
kids to the like for your summer, and you're like, so instead of a goal for, I think it must have been July,
Yep.
that you posted like, instead of a goal this quarter, we have like a family of fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's our map. We like came up with all of the things we're gonna do, and I remember being like so delighted it could be used in that way, because of course your kids were even younger
Yep.
then, and I think it turned out well, right?
We've
You guys had a good
continued to
summer.
do it every summer. So we called it our summer camp. And I think, oh, I forget the exact name, but we like came up with a name for it. And it was like our summer camp. And we had all of these things that we were going to do. And we like just kind of looked at the week and we made the intention of like, which one are we going to do this week? And it was fun and it was exciting. It got me through the week and through the summer. And it made me feel like less guilty about time I spent working, because I knew that I was going to allot that time for the kids. And so, yeah, as they've gotten older, it's changed. I think back then I had a really long summer with them because they were just starting school. So it was like the end of nursery to the beginning of school. Our summers are a little bit shorter now with them both being in school. But yeah, I just think that if you don't set goals or intentions or areas of focus, then you're just letting days pass you by, hoping that, oh, one day we'll do this and one day we'll do that, when you could just be so much more intentional. And I don't know, like, it just, for me, it makes me feel better.
That's excellent. Yeah. And I think that, like, oh, you said before so you asked people why they didn't set goals, and you were telling me that like you have a hard time understanding why people wouldn't do it because it makes like your life better in all of these ways. And I think the thing about failing is of course huge, but the other thing is that some people's brains, I've realized since talking to them, like don't need goals in order to do the things they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or they're setting goals just like subconsciously. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have a friend who told me, well, I don't understand the map making guide. Like, she has a business, but we've just been friends for years. And she's like, I don't understand the map making guide because it sounds like you're just telling people to like decide what they want to do and then create a plan and then act on the plan. And I was like, exactly. And she's like, right, I do that already. I was like, that's great. But most people don't.
Right.
Like, most people you talk to are not doing what they want to do. And so being super intentional about identifying that, boiling it down from like, I think most of the people I talk to, which might just be who I'm like attracting, but most people I talk to have like 50 things they want to do and don't feel like they make progress on any. And I don't know that you and I are actually accomplishing more. We just feel like we are because we're focused on a couple things and we feel good about what we accomplish in those couple things. Meanwhile, like ignoring the 50 things, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just that some people are going to do that and not need to verbalize it to themselves. But so what I always tell people is if you feel like you're getting done what you want to get done, don't worry about goals. If you feel like you are not and you're constantly behind and you're not accomplishing what you want to accomplish, or like in your case, you're like guilty about not spending the time with your kids, then like get super intentional, clarify, pull away, like, because that's the thing about you and your kids making the list is it let you not do 100 other things.
Right.
Right? Because they could each day be like, Mom, we want to do this, we want to do this. And you can be like, well, on Friday, we're going to do this. And you don't feel bad that you're not doing all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Because like, especially little kids will come up with like 100 things they want to do. And you're going to say no to 99 of them because you've said yes to this one. And that just lets you like not have any guilt about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Same thing in my business. Like there are so many things I should do each week. And the more I've focused on what I'm going to spend my energy focusing on, I just don't feel bad about that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And I do believe that there are probably some people who just kind of naturally do this in their head. People, maybe like upholders, going back to Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, people who are much more, have an easier time like meeting their own expectations and like dealing with other people's expectations, and they just kind of like, well, I want to do this, so I just do it. Maybe I don't have a good memory. I don't know. Like, for me, it needs to be written down, and I need to keep it like top of my head. So I always think about, like, my husband said at the beginning of the year, he's like, oh, I'd really like to do something more creative. But for him, he would verbalize that at the beginning of the year, and then that would be it. Like, he would just leave it. And then I'm like, but you wanted to do this thing. And he's like, nah. But I'm like, okay, like, let's find you a D&D group, and like, oh, let's find miniature paint. Like, I'm always on the lookout for things that would help him be more creative, because that's what he said he wanted. So, like, that's the part that I don't understand. People who are like, I want to do this, and then it's just nothing. And I'm like,
yeah,
write it down, like, brainstorm ways that you could do that. Like,
it's so funny because you're a rebel. And so for like a long time, you were like, if I identify I want to do something, I don't do it.
right.
Like, I think it just changed because you like shifted, well, I don't have to do it just because I identify. Like, once you took away that you have to do it, then you were excited about it again.
Right. So that I did struggle with goal setting, and I struggle if I just have like one goal that I'm disconnected from. So if it's just like, here's an income number because I think that number will make me respectable or make me look good in front of other people, or like some kind of milestone that means a lot to other people, but I actually don't connect with it, those goals were making me feel like suffocated and like stressed and making me want to rebel against them. But if I have a goal that's like, you chose this is the person you want to be, and you have a choice about it. Like, that's why with my areas of focus, I have a choice about how I go about that. I have the choice to cross things off my list. Like, as long as I keep it very much like, this is in your control, you're choosing to do this, this is fun, this is what you want, and if you don't want it anymore, totally okay, then I'm fine with goal setting.
Yeah, you're like, as long as there are no rules around it, I'm fine. Yeah. Right. I kind of wonder, Jay's the same way that you mentioned your husband is about things he wants to do. And like, when we've talked about it, he's like, basically he wants to avoid anything that would obligate him. Mm-hmm. Because, like, okay, he's an obliger, and he, like, he's an obliger and he hates it, and he feels like obligated really easily. And so in order to keep himself from feeling obligated, he won't do the like, okay, let's make a list, let's check things out. But what he is great at is if he gets into something, he's like all into it. So like the miniature painting, like he for years would say, like, I need a hobby. Like, you knit and sew, and I need a hobby that's not video games. There's nothing wrong with video games, but A, you can't always play them, and B, like, they're not always good for helping you shift your mood, mm-hmm. especially if part of the problem is like you've been on screens too much. Like, his office job he's in now is like too much screen time, so he doesn't want to do more screens when he comes home. And for years he wanted a hobby. I suggested so many freaking hobbies, but it wasn't until I told his friend, oh, you should paint those miniatures. Like, there's all this painting stuff. And then, I don't know, Jay, like, fell down a Google hole and then bought the paints and then promised his friend he'd paint them, so then he was obligated. And now he, like, loves it and is obsessive and does a lot for himself. Like, he's not obligated to anybody else anymore because he finished his friend's game. But all that to say, like, it took years. Yeah. And, like, now he has this really nerdy hobby he is obsessed with. But, like, he was never going to set a goal and then find it, Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit sneaky, and I've learned that if I pretend it's for someone else, my husband goes along with it. So I'm like, I think Leo would really like this D&D group. Why don't you both go? And then I'll be like, oh, I found this miniature painting thing that I think would be fun. Let's all go. And then he goes, he loves it because he knew he would, and then he'll start doing it. And so, like, Leo, my oldest, is really into running. So he's been like, Daddy, come running with me. And he can do that because, like, even though running is something he likes, he doesn't, like, won't do it for himself. But if I pair it with, like, a kid or, like, something I want, then it's fine. And then, like you said, once he's in, he's all in.
Right. Yeah. And he'll do it for himself. Like, I mean, yeah, Jay, like, has no problem once he's
right.
into it.
It's the initial bump, like that initial hurdle of, like, you gotta just push.
Yes. It's activation energy. Yeah. I feel like for obligators or obligers, getting over that initial activation energy, if it's just something for themselves, you, like, have to tie somebody else into it. you know?
Yeah.
And I love that you use your kids like that, though. You're giving me all kinds of ideas for new ways to get my husband to do things.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I feel like the alternative title of this podcast could be ways to get your partner to do things.
Listen.
Or like how to live with an obliger partner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because this was so much of it comes down to like our own happy lives, like come down to like figuring out how to navigate these relationships.
Yes, you and I are both like the captain of our own boat. Like we're steering it. Here's the path, and we just have people in our life that need a little nudging to make sure we're all on the path together. But like I said, that's how I don't know. Like that's how I prefer to do things, and I understand like not everyone wants to, but I think one of like my core desired feelings, going back to that episode, is like the need to feel like I'm shaping my own life. And it really bugs me if I feel like the days are just passing me by and someone else is controlling my life. Like, because if I'm not actively goal setting and planning and focusing, then you're letting outside forces determine what happens. You're letting obligations to other people determine what happens, or whatever the other things you have in your life, your kids want to do this and your husband wants to do this, like you're letting everyone else kind of dictate your day. And like, I really need to feel like my day is my choice. And so that's where goal setting comes for me. Even as a rebel, I've tied it into that identity of like, this is me taking ownership of my life and my day.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, as a questioner, I have to do the work to figure out why I want to do something. And like you mentioned earlier about being disconnected from your goals, if I just set a random goal, or it's someone else's goal, or it's just like not super tied, like I just don't see all of the reasons why behind it, I'm just not going to do it. And it's hard though, because a lot of times I trick myself into thinking, oh, I really want this goal, but then I realize I'm not working on it. And the answer for me is almost always like, why are you working on it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do you care about it? And the more I can like dredge up more and more reasons, the easier it is for me to do it. Which is why when we talk about goal setting, I always give people like 500 reasons why they should do it, so that they like realize it could help. And here's the crazy thing about it. Do it. Make a plan based on that goal, and then like keep reviewing it regularly. And if it doesn't work for you, like you can always stop.
Yeah.
It's like just an experiment.
Yes. The best thing that I've incorporated, so I also struggled with like weekly reviews and monthly reviews. I'm just like, I can't answer all those questions. The best thing that I found is 3 simple questions of start, stop, and continue. What do I want to start doing? What do I want to stop doing? And what do I want to continue doing? So like every week, if I'm trying new habits, or in the end of the quarter, it's always, okay, like how's everything making me feeling? What do I need to stop doing because it's not making me feel good? What do I need to continue doing because it is working really well? And is there anything I want to start doing? And that's kind of how I review everything that I do, every new habit that I bring in, whether it's getting up early, whether it's reading with my breakfast, whether it's not eating till noon. Like I'm always reviewing, how is this making me feel? Because at the end of the day, like that's the one thing. Is it feeling good? Continue. Is it not? Stop.
I love it. Yes, totally. So yeah, thanks for talking with me about goals. I love this. So we're gonna link up every episode we mentioned, like 4 Tendencies and Core Desired Feelings, and those books that Jolie mentioned. We'll link up.
The book club pick for July is This Is Me by Chrissy
Metz.
I was gonna say Teigen, and that's a different person.
Somebody totally different.
Yeah. Awesome. So I just want to look at the comments real quick. So Bronwyn said, one of my favorite quotes, failure is just a bruise, not a tattoo. I like that. Michelle said, yes, as long as it's my goal and not someone else's. I think what you mentioned earlier about feeling pressure to do this new thing because it's what people are doing or should do, or the shiny thing, and saying no because it's not in alignment with what you're already doing and what you want to achieve. Yes. So that's the other thing about goal setting, is it stops me from doing things like that don't actually build the business I want to build. So before I kind of incorporated goal setting, I would very often find myself doing things because I thought they're what I should be doing, or I thought like, yeah, sure, that sounds like it's more money. I should want more money, so I'll go in that direction. And it just ended up building a business that I wasn't liking. And so I had to pivot and actually like intentionally build the business that I do love.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing that goals help you do, is they help you like zone in. I mean, picking a goal that you actually care about is key, but then after that, it just lets you ignore all the other stuff, because there are like a million things you could do. You don't need, you might not want to do. So just let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So thank you guys for joining us in the Facebook group. If you want to watch these live, you can come over to the group, which is Take Care of Yourself with Tara Swiger. We record there every Tuesday at 6 p.m. London time, which is
1 p.m. Eastern time.
1 p.m. Eastern. So head over there if you want to watch live and talk to us in the comments. Otherwise, you can watch these on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app or on our site, which is essentialenthusiasm.com.
Yep. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys.